I wanted to ask about the situation in Turkmenistan, specifically the drastic measures that the Turkmen authorities have taken despite having no reported cases. Now, the simple fact that they have no reporting cases, considering the situation in the surrounding countries, makes this a little difficult to believe. Do you think this is due to a lack of technical capability, to information suppression on the part of the Turkmen government? What could be the cause of this zero number?
Well, it's what you have mentioned, the technical capabilities of Turkmenistan to identify the COVID-19. But most countries in the world, in 2019, it was even the number one country, actually, according to Reporters Without Borders, in terms of press freedom. Even if Turkmenistan had confirmed cases of COVID-19, trust me, they would not report it to the world. But the country was indeed one of the first in the world to start evacuating its own citizens from the hotspots, from China namely, and with several airplanes, a number of hundreds of citizens of Turkmenistan were brought back from China, including from Wuhan region, where dozens of Turkmen students pursued their higher education through the state program.
Is Turkmenistan part of the Chinese government's Belt and Road Initiative?
I think so, yes.
I'm just trying to understand the kind of connection here between Turkmenistan and China. We know, for example, that one of the reasons that Iran has had such a large spike in cases was in big part due to the close cooperation between the Iranian government and the Chinese government. Is there this sort of cooperation between the Chinese and Turkmen authorities?
Of course, there's one of the largest Chinese oil and gas companies has an office in Turkmenistan, which is the CNPC, Chinese National Petroleum Corporation. There's a number of Chinese citizens working in Turkmenistan, exploiting the gas fields in the east of Turkmenistan. As I said, there is a number of Turkmen students studying in Chinese universities and colleges, and there was until recently a direct air communication with China, both from the Turkmen side and from the Chinese side. So the communication between China and Turkmenistan was quite significant, yes.
So given that, it makes it very hard to believe that there are no actual cases of COVID-19 in the country. Why is the Turkmen government so set on not reporting these cases? Are they trying to avoid a panic? Is it a reputational issue? What could possibly be the government's reasoning behind this?
Well, it's all of that, actually. It's trying to avoid panic among its own population. It's also the reputational matter, because in the past few years, we had several cases when floods were in Turkmenistan. None of the local media reported about that. That's the culture of Turkmen politics. They tend not to tell the world and its own citizens, in fact, about bad things. If you open a Turkmen newspaper or start watching a Turkmen TV channel, it's all rosy. Everything is fine, life continues, and everything, of course, thanks to the government and the smart leadership of Turkmenistan.
But we know for a fact that things are not fine. Food prices have shot up significantly in recent days. Is that also connected to the border crossings, or is there something else going on that we don't know about?
The closure of borders, especially with Iran, has indeed significantly impacted on food prices in the markets. But even before closure of the border, Turkmenistan had severe food shortage. And that's because of the financial issues that Turkmenistan is facing. The hard currency income has dropped after Russia had stopped purchasing Turkmen natural gas. And Turkmenistan has two dollar rates, the official state rate, which hasn't changed since 2015, and the market rate, which is 5 times higher than the state rate. So the state purchases food like meat, chicken, etc. from overseas. Officially, they allow certain businessmen, this money conversion, currency conversion, but the amounts of foodstuffs that they bring into Turkmenistan is clearly not enough for the population, and that's why we continue to see all of those food queues in front of state grocery stores. People want to buy flour, people want to buy vegetable oil, meat. Sometimes there is shortage of eggs and sugar. But closing of border with Iran has significantly and negatively impacted the availability of foodstuffs and their prices.
Do you see the Turkmen government increasing their restrictions on movement within the country if the situation in Iran and Afghanistan gets worse?
Well, so far, I think they keep things under control. There haven't been reports on increasing of cases in Iran and Afghanistan, unlike in the US or Europe. They do take measures. They have closed or significantly limited, that would be fair to say, movement inside the country. They have shut down all of the international flights. They don't allow foreign operators, air operators, to fly into Turkmenistan. And this country was indeed, let's face it, it was one of the first countries to take such restrictive measures. And perhaps the fact that there are no reported cases is thanks to that.
And what about the Turkmen health system? In Ukraine, for example, the health system, while the government says that it is completely prepared, a lot of people are pointing out that it has certain deficiencies in dealing with a serious outbreak. Do you believe the Turkmen health system is up to the task if there do start to be confirmed cases, or if the government starts admitting that there are confirmed cases?
Turkmenistan's health system in general is very, very behind, even if you compare it to the health systems of Uzbekistan or any other post-Soviet countries. It's not for a reason that some Turkmen citizens who have the money, if they have significant health problems, they travel even to Uzbekistan for screening. They go to Turkey, to Iran, and to India. India has become one of the biggest destinations for Turkmen citizens seeking proper healthcare services. And if, God forbid, Turkmenistan sees the outbreak of COVID-19, local doctors will be completely not prepared to handle the issue, despite the fact that the head of state is a doctor by training, and he had been the Minister of Health prior to becoming president of Turkmenistan. Since I think 1997, he was the health minister of the country. But under his supervision, under his control, this entire industry, this entire sector of life in Turkmenistan was completely ruined. Yes, they do build nice and white marble hospitals. They equip these hospitals with state-of-the-art technology from Japan, from Western Europe, from the US. But it's people that treat patients. It's not the technology. And this government, this country it doesn't have prepared physicians, prepared doctors to handle the problem if the outbreak takes place in the country.
And speaking of other post-Soviet countries, I wanted to ask about Tajikistan. Like Turkmenistan, they also have no reported cases. Is this an analogous situation with government undercounting, a lack of testing capability, and so on?
I think the situation in Tajikistan is similar to what we see in Turkmenistan. It's a cultural thing. That's the culture of politics. They don't tend to tell about such things. I mean, look at the country. They have tens of thousands of migrant workers working in Russia, in other countries, in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has a number of confirmed cases already, and people travel back and forth. So. Plus, this country has also communication with China. There's trade, there's everything. So, to me, it sounds and it seems like the government of Tajikistan is simply not telling the truth, just like Turkmenistan.
And finally, I want to ask, what's the public mood? What's the public perception of what's going on like? I mean, you mentioned that media in Turkmenistan is not very free and they're presenting this rosy picture, but often people, especially in post-Soviet countries, don't have the highest opinion of the trustworthiness of their media, and I think in a lot of cases rightly so. How are they reacting to the outbreak in markets, in shops, at home?
Well, the Turkmen society is not very talkative on such matters. For all the years of independence, we learned to keep our mouths shut. And if people even discuss COVID-19 and the implications and everything related to that, they do it in private among the people they trust. But in Turkmenistan, in Ashgabat, for instance, there were also based on rumors, because people hear from one another. Somebody said that the prices for fresh meat have gone up, and everybody rushed to the market to replenish their stocks. And if the authorities were to decide to close the markets and the bazaars, those people would have enough at home. They gauge the situation by what they see in shops, for instance. When Turkmenistan closed the border with Iran, the prices for potatoes went up. If before they were sold at 10 manats, which is roughly 50 US cents, when the situation got worse, when the border was shut, the prices doubled for potatoes, and people started to really stock so that they have enough. And the government reacted accordingly. They immediately organized import of potatoes from Russia, and basically the next morning people started to see that there was enough potatoes, and really nice ones from Russia, black, and at a reasonable price. Of course, not at prices that were before, but slightly higher. But they at least saw that the government saw that there was a shortage of potatoes, and they quickly filled up the markets.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ruslan, and thanks for speaking to me.
My pleasure.